yesterday, Bill Maher on his HBO show Real Time had director-producer of the highly anticipated film, The Age of Disclosure, Dan Farah on. And they discussed what the upcoming film is going to encompass. And I was very pleasantly pleased because I think it covers everything that the public really needs to know about UFOs at this point in history. Let's dive into this episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, and I will give some commentary and analysis.
Like a turning point in that I think government officials have started to acknowledge that this is a real situation.
Yeah.
And it's not a laughing matter, it's serious, and it's an issue that should become a serious national conversation.
Yeah, well, I think it is now.
That is the hope for this documentary, for it to become a serious national conversation. It has become more mainstream. It has become less ridiculed. The stigma has diminished. But when you consider the weight of not being alone, non-human intelligences being among us and engaging humanity, and all the rest that this film covers, it is not a national conversation the way that it should be. And to me, the highest hope for this film is that it triggers a chain reaction that leads to greater openness by the U.S. government on this enigma. I think the U.S. government should use this film as a door to be more transparent with the public. Because if they continue obfuscating and lying, instead of this film being a vehicle to right the wrongs of the past, to show that they want to do the right thing, it's only going to make the U.S. government look more guilty. So I hope the U.S. government takes this as an opportunity as opposed to an indictment.
Yeah. And as you say, that when our technology changes, it very well may change their attitude toward us. It seems like, now they could have been here forever.
Yeah.
You seem to think that their bases are under the ocean, which is the best place you would hide. We don't know much about the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah. 80% of the ocean hasn't been explored.
Right. And they seem to be very interested when we started to have nuclear technology. Now we have AI. Is it possible that we do get to this level where we're threatening to them with our intelligence, and that is when they're going to send Keanu Reeves to say, clearly they don't want to do it.
Yeah, it does seem like we're moving towards a crossroad. Like we're evolving technologically to the point where we're close to doing what they do. Yet again, our morals have not evolved, so we could be viewed as a potential threat.
That is an extremely fascinating and sophisticated angle that Dan Farah's upcoming documentary will consist of. And, this comes under the umbrella of my pet hypothesis, alien AI hypothesis. And the non-human intelligences that I assess are here. It is every bit as credible that they're trying to influence us for their sake as much as they're trying to influence us for our sake. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's more their desire for self-preservation and less their concern for our preservation. We really don't know. But this documentary, as Dan Farah outlined, does go into the nuke UFO connection that suggests that UFOs, non-human intelligences, are incredibly interested in nuclear technology. And at this point, we can only hypothesize why that is. I personally lean toward the majority of their concern being because they want to continue to do whatever they're doing here, whatever that may be. Whether they're here because they want to live here under our oceans, or because they just see this as a scientific gem and they want to continue studying this planet. My inclination is that it's more about self-preservation than it is about them being concerned about humanity's continuation. Because if we do anything that wipes us off the map, obviously the viability of Earth will be diminished significantly, which could affect them. Whether it could affect them in terms of them living here, or it could affect them in terms of them wanting to continue to study this planet and biosphere, or both. And in line with my alien AI hypothesis, it makes total sense that disclosure would come during the nuclear age and at the advent of the AI age. As Dan Farah pointed out, humanity has evolved significantly technologically, but our moral evolvement hasn't really caught up to the extent that our technological evolvement has been on a runaway train trajectory. So maybe the non-human intelligences, which some have said are the architects of the secrecy, maybe they are engineering disclosure so that it influences humanity at large to evolve very quickly morally, so that as we continue to advance technologically, we don't threaten them and we don't threaten this Earth. And so if they want disclosure to happen at a certain point, and they're also obsessed with the health of the planet and the viability of the planet, then it makes total sense that they would influence disclosure to happen at a moment in our history that would influence us optimally for us to grow spiritually and ethically. That doesn't necessarily mean these non-human intelligences are spiritually or ethically flawless. They might have figured out through artificial intelligence game planning exactly how to influence and be behind the cover-up, and how to ensure that this scenario that they have fine-tuned, that it comes to an end precisely when it will influence humanity to the extent that it makes it less likely that we destroy this Earth. And that would go directly under my alien AI hypothesis. And I think that in a post-disclosure world, the conversation will shift dramatically. Right now, the conversation is, okay, are these non-human intelligences, because there's still a debate, what are these craft? What are the capabilities of these craft? So in a post-disclosure world, I think the conversation will shift into who are these beings? Why are they here? What is their agenda? But it will also shift into how do we make open contact? I really think that collectively, our sociologists, our scientists, and just everyday people will want to make open contact, whether that's smart or not. But I don't know how it could be foolhardy necessarily, because they're already here. So if we try to invite open contact, I don't know if that really changes the equation, because they're already here. And so I think in a post-disclosure world, there will be a huge movement to figure out a way to get these beings to communicate publicly and openly, as opposed to covertly, so that we can have some dialogue and get clarity on why they're here. Because it would make absolutely no sense to get UFO confirmation and then we just continue on living like we have, trying to study the phenomenon, but making no issue of the fact that they're still not communicating to us openly in a transparent way. That would make absolutely no sense.
You know, it's been 80 years. I mean, somehow a lot of this stuff has been kept under wraps. Wouldn't Trump have blabbed about it?
So one of the shocking interviews in my film is Secretary Rubio going on the record saying that this has been so deeply hidden that even presidents are not told all the facts around this topic. They're sort of given a little bit of information and they're told the direction this is going to go, but they're kept out of it. And that was pretty shocking to hear someone at Rubio's level making that clear.
In case you don't know, Marco Rubio, former Senator Marco Rubio, is now the sitting Secretary of State and National Security Advisor to the President of the United States. Two incredibly high-level senior positions in the U.S. government. And this documentary is coming out in about 20 days. I think Secretary Rubio is going to be held accountable for the comments he makes in this documentary. And people are going to dig up old comments he's made about UFOs, because he's been talking about UFOs for quite a while, talking about the credibility of UFO whistleblowers. Why would they make this stuff up? And that we should know what's happening in our airspace. Why would we not want to know? And now add to that this comment about presidents not being told as much as they should about what the government knows about UFOs. So this is going to be a big deal, because this is not like someone who was a senator and's been retired for 3 years. This is someone who is the sitting Secretary of State and National Security Advisor to the President of the United States. On account of that, I think that this film is going to make a lot of waves. And that's without even mentioning that former Director of National Intelligence, Jim Clapper, and he was also the Director of Defense Intelligence Agency, he held both those positions, mind-bendingly senior positions within the U.S. government. He's going to make huge statements about UFOs. So this film is really going to put the U.S. government in a tough spot. And like I said, they can use this film as a vehicle to start leveling with the people, or they can ignore that opportunity and allow the film to indict them as violating the will of the people to know what their universe is all about.
And there's also the theory I saw in your movie that possibly when these crashes take place, they're doing it on purpose so that we'll be able to absorb their technology, that we have found their spacecraft, possibly, and we will reverse engineer it so we could learn.
I'm really glad that we'll make it into the film. This is an idea that is highly supported by people like Dr. Eric Davis, David Grush, and Jake Barber, just as a few examples, that these crashes aren't necessarily what they seem. And also there's reports by these three individuals I just referenced of intentional landings. We might call these donations, so that various governments throughout the world can get some clarity on the technologies that these intelligences are utilizing for God knows why. I mean, that's one of the reasons I think we need open contact so badly, right? It should not be just governments and aerospace corporations and the military and the intelligence community, small pockets within them, dealing with this. It's too big a mystery, and it's too profound for it to be relegated to small pockets within these organizations. That's really maddening and absurd on every level imaginable. But this also goes under my umbrella, my alien AI hypothesis umbrella. I would interpret this with my bias that this is part of the engineering of the cover-up, because you have to understand, once the UFO issue became a military secret, that's when governments were incentivized to just not talk about it. And as soon as they got their hands on hardware, that was enough incentivization for them to be like, nope, the first person who cracks this technology basically rules the world. So we're not going to talk about this publicly. We're not going to give any advantages to our adversaries. But at this point, the cover-up is doing far more damage than it is protecting. And the people that are persisting with the cover-up, as far as I'm concerned, don't really care about the health of civilization. They may tell themselves that, well, the public can't handle this and it's too important a national security issue. So in the balance of risk-taking, we're better off erring towards cover-up versus transparency. But to me, that's probably a conclusion that only an incredible degree of bias can lead to. Because what do you have as a civilization if you can't trust your government? What does national security mean when all trust in government has been eroded? I don't think I'm overstating it that when UFO confirmation finally dawns, the relationship between the governments that lied about it and the governed is going to be forever compromised. It will not be able to return to what it was. Because there will be so much anger involved. It's not just an intellectual realization. Oh, you lied, but there were aliens here, and now you're telling the truth, and now we know there are aliens there. I mean, look at Eric Weinstein, who's very vocal about UFOs and is a scientist, and he's interested in the topic. I'm sure he would be livid because I don't know to how much he's convinced that there is NHI in our world and that technologies and bodies have been recovered. But when that becomes a fact, which I think it inevitably will, assuming I'm correct about UFOs, there will be extraordinary levels of anger. People will see all this time as lost time. Time that could have been used to learn more about the most interesting mystery in our universe that is simultaneously the most important technology in our universe. Technology that can free us from fossil fuels potentially and help us to eradicate hunger potentially even improve medicine. So the anger is going to be very real. So that is why I at this point, I'm always open to be persuaded otherwise, but at this point, I think those who are persisting with the secrecy are overly biased on the idea that it's too dangerous to bring to the public. Because in my opinion, it's more dangerous to allow respect for your government to erode to the levels they would if they don't act quickly and show that they're part of the solution instead of part of the problem.
But one of the really serious reveals in the film is that intelligence officials in our government and elected officials in our government have uncovered the fact that there is a deeply hidden UAP crash retrieval program, and they've been reverse engineering UAP. And there is, in fact, a program at adversarial nations as well. And so there's this essentially high-stakes secret Cold War race playing out right now to reverse engineer this technology. Some of the interview subjects in my film refer to it as the Manhattan Project on steroids because the stakes are so high, but the public has no idea. So, one of the things I hope comes out of this film is the public becoming aware of this situation because these circumstances impact us all.
I don't think director-producer Dan Farah knows it, but what he is covering in that clip is what we would call UFO healing. Now, in December of 2023, David Grush, who, just as a reminder, is a decorated former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer who spent 14 years in service, followed by senior intelligence assignments at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, and the National Reconnaissance Offices, NRO. He spoke about UFO healing when he was in December of 2023 on the Tucker Carlson Encounter show. And I'm going to play a clip from that because, in my perspective, what Grush is about to outline is what the age of disclosure is going to help accomplish in our world.
It's time to reconcile this. We need to heal from this. We need to disclose the basics, the fact that we're not alone. We've recovered material and we've recovered the occupants. And beyond that, the president can decide what should be disclosed. It's above my pay grade, but the basics should be acknowledged. And I think it's a more ontologically shocking, but also uniting thing in an era of divisiveness. I think we need this.
I agree with that.
I mean, what else is going to unite the left, the right, and potentially our adversaries?
So I asked ChatGPT about David Grush's statements there and led it to focus on a particular idea. And this is what it gave me. And I think it's very good commentary analysis. So I'm going to share it with you. And I quote, "If David Grush is telling the truth, then humanity has been robbed of decades, even generations of knowledge. Scientific breakthroughs that could have reshaped our understanding of physics may have been shelved. Philosophical and spiritual frameworks that could have emerged from the awareness that we are not alone were never allowed to form. Our entire species has been denied the chance to evolve around a truth that belongs to all of us. Imagine how differently we would think about each other, about our place in the universe, if this information had been public in the 1940s, 1960s, or even the 1990s. Instead, history was redirected, culture was misled, and everything we could have been during those years remains unknowable. And with that, please do not forget to subscribe. If you'd like to support this channel, you can become a patron, you could become a YouTube member, you could give me a one-time donation. All those potentialities can be accessed in the description box below, or you could just slap a like on this bad boy, and I'll appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.